David R. Guttery is an investment advisory representative of Ameritas Investment Corporation and president of Keystone Financial Group in Trussville, Alabama. Please stay tuned through the end of the video for additional important disclosure information.
Today I am joined by David Guttery, president of Keystone Financial Group in Trussville, for a discussion about why it's never a good idea to cut wood with a claw hammer. Hi David, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
David, I must say, the subject of this discussion is intriguing. I assume that you're drawing reference to using the right tool for the right job, correct?
Exactly. Let's assume that you saw a commercial with a construction worker holding a hammer, and he said, all hammers are bad. If you own a hammer, then it's because someone at the hardware store churned a commission at your expense. The only person who benefits from selling hammers is the salesperson. Hammers are cumbersome, they're dangerous, and they make loud noise. Anything you want to do with a hammer, there's a better tool to use. And then if he concluded by saying, we don't sell hammers, we'll never sell hammers, would you raise an eyebrow and maybe think the commercial was a bit strange?
Yes, David, I think that would sound strange.
As I am working with clients to construct a financial plan, we talk about the financial tools that we can use to implement the plan. Through the planning work, we clearly identify the task at hand. Are we driving a nail? Are we turning a screw? Are we cutting a block of wood, for example? And once I've identified the task, then I have a basis for making a recommendation for using a hammer or a screwdriver or a saw.
So, do you find that sometimes prospective clients have a preconceived negative bias toward a tool that might best fit the task at hand?
Yes, that happens, and it's my job to not only take the time to thoroughly understand the task at hand, but also to educate clients on the efficacy of the tools that might be best for meeting the task. For example, I've found that annuities are sometimes the subject of a familiarity bias that resulted from misinformation from friends, television commercials, or other sources. I've heard stories of how someone's friend was penalized or heavily taxed for taking a withdrawal from an annuity, only to learn that the annuity was funding an IRA that was recently created and the friend was 40 years of age. This is an educational moment where I can explain that annuities, and particularly IRA annuities, were not designed to be treated as savings accounts, but rather as long-term sources of income. It's not the annuity's fault that it wasn't used properly. Likewise, it's not the hammer's fault that it can't cut wood. That isn't the task for which it was designed. There's nothing inherently wrong with the hammer. It is the best and most suitable tool in the box when it comes to the driving of a nail. In spite of that distinctive competency, it won't do you much good if you need to turn a bolt.
That's a great point, and when you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. When working with your clients, how do you address any familiarity bias they may have when it comes time to implement a financial plan?
First, I suggest multiple courses of action. Using this analogy, we may have determined that the task at hand calls for the cutting of a board. Well, I have a circular saw, a bow saw, a band saw, a chainsaw. I even have a cutting tool on a Dremel. Each is uniquely competent in its own right, but one or a combination of them will be most suitable. We discuss the strengths and the drawbacks of each, and we formulate our plan of action accordingly. Secondly, we talk about the diversity of my toolbox, and I explain that my job is to bring the correct tool to the task at hand. If you don't need the competencies of a given tool, then I'm going to leave it in the box. Lastly, it's my job to explain why a given tool might be best for the job. Through this process, a bias of familiarity is often addressed to a client's satisfaction.
And I would also assume, in addition to a diverse financial toolbox, that competency is of importance as well.
Absolutely. It's not enough to simply work with an advisor who can sell products. Likewise, just because someone owns a hammer does not necessarily mean that you should hire that person to remodel your bathroom. People are best served by advisors who have both a diverse financial toolbox and the knowledge of how and when to use each tool. Competency is critical, and to that end, general contractors who disavow hammers are probably not the best source of input when it comes to the efficacy of hammers. Annuities, mutual funds, general securities, insurance products, they're all tools. They do what they do, and they do what they do better than any other tool in the box. The only question is, do you need what the tool provides? My advice would be to listen to those who have the tools and know how to use them, rather than to those who would have you believe that all hammers are bad. After all, if they don't have a tool and claim to never use them, then are they really a good source of input about usefulness?
Thank you, David. For additional information, David may be reached through the means listed upon the following screen. For the Trussville Tribune, I'm Tana Friday.
David R. Guttery independently offers securities and investment advisory services through Ameritas Investment Corporation, member FINRA and SIPC. AIC and Keystone Financial Group are not affiliated. Additional products and services may be available through David R. Guttery or Keystone Financial Group that are not offered through AIC. Some of the products and concepts discussed have their own cost and are subject to risk, including the possible loss of principal. These costs and risk will be thoroughly discussed with you prior to any recommendation or solicitation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results.